we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country.
Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and make sure you share this. So the birthright citizenship conversation is a big topic, and is making some progress in litigation through, obviously, through Congress and the Supreme Court. So let's get tuned in.
On a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies, and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people.
So let's see what other reactions are out there about this.
The Supreme Court ruling that was passed down yesterday was not about birthright citizenship. It doesn't get rid of birthright citizenship in the United States. It's part of the Constitution. It's the 14th Amendment. And in order for them to get rid of birthright citizenship, they have to amend the Constitution. They have to put another amendment in the Constitution, which right now, the way Congress is, it's an impossibility to get the majority of Congress to agree on anything. What the ruling was saying that the lower courts cannot pass injunctions that has national repercussions. So,
which goes back to the point where Trump was saying that they'll be able to win the case. That's what I'm connecting what he's saying to what was already said about Trump. Let's go.
So, for example, a lower court can't make a ruling where then the whole nation has to follow it, or that it blocks a presidential order. Now, this does muddy the waters. It makes things a little bit more complicated. It makes it so that the judicial system can't readily and quickly block the executive branch. It means that in order to fight for the right for birthright citizenship, it has to go through each individual district court. Now, this makes things way complicated, because what if one district judge rules one way and another district judge somewhere else rules another way? So does that mean that in certain areas we can't deport people who were born in America, and in other districts they can? This is a precedent that I'm not so sure we want to go down.
Now, he said, yeah, how does that apply to across the board with other people, with people from other countries that actually live here? And how does it mix up with, the way things play out? And I found this other video.
Jamaicans living in the diaspora. This is Peter Gracie, the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council representative for the Southern United States. And I come to you today with urgent news that you need to hear. Just moments ago, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a decision that could directly impact thousands of Jamaican families across America, especially those with children born in the U.S.
I think what he's saying is going to add more context to what the previous video said.
The court ruled that lower courts can no longer block federal policies for the entire country, even if those policies may be illegal or unconstitutional. And the policy in question, an executive order signed by President Donald Trump earlier this year, ending birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents. Under this new executive order, if you're not a U.S. citizen or permanent resident and you give birth in the United States, your child may not automatically become a U.S. citizen. Before today, judges in places like Maryland and California had stepped in to stop the order using something they called a nationwide injunction. That means the policy was blocked across all 50 states, no matter where you live. But the Supreme Court just said no more, that done, that over. Now, those blocks only apply in specific court regions where they were filed. So if your state doesn't have an active legal case against this policy, the order can take effect immediately, and that puts your child's future at risk. Let me give you some real-world examples. In Florida, home to one of the largest Jamaican population in America, the executive order may now be enforced unless a new case is filed. In Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and other southern states where many of us live and work in hospitality, education, home care, trucking, farming, healthcare, the same threat now looms. But in more progressive states like New York and California, courts may still be blocking the order within their region. That means a Jamaican child born in New York may still be protected, while one born in Florida may not.
That explains the anxiety in the previous video from the guy that was saying how the waters get muddied when the injunctions are no longer valid.
This is the definition of inequality, in my opinion. If a child legal status, whether they are accepted as an American or not, should never depend on their zip code. Now let me break this down a little more simply. An injunction is a court order that stops something from happening while it's being reviewed. For years, when presidents introduced questionable policies, courts could block them nationwide. But this new ruling says that they can now only block policies for the people involved in the cases, not for the entire country. So unless you or your state take legal action, your child may not be protected. Let me be clear, this ruling does not mean the executive order is officially law as yet. The big legal fight over whether it's constitutional is still ahead, but the protections are fading away. But what can you do? Get informed, know the laws and policies in your state, and talk to your community leaders. Share this message with every Jamaican parent in the US because they need to hear it. If you're worried or affected, call the Consulate General of Jamaica in Miami at 305-374-8431. They are here to guide and support you through these uncertain times. Jamaican people have always fought hard to give their children better opportunities. We came to America with hope, with faith, and with dreams. Let's not sit quietly while those dreams are threatened.
So that gives some context. So I got to thinking about this. Like, well, what countries offer birthright citizenship? So it made me think of, how let me get in this mode right here. All right, here we go. Better. Sorry about that, folks. Make sure. All right, so what countries have birthright citizenship? There's the question, and here we go. Birthright citizenship, also known as just solely right of the soil, is the legal right to citizenship for all individuals born in a country's territory, regardless of parental citizenship. This policy varies globally. Here's a breakdown. Countries with unconditional birthright citizenship. Got North America, Canada, United States, Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, Lesotho, Tanzania, Pakistan, and Fiji. So, countries we don't see on here. Let's see. There's a bunch of countries that we just don't see on here, right? Countries with conditional birthright citizenship. These countries grant citizenship at birth only under certain conditions, such as when at least one parent is a citizen or permanent resident. Okay. So you have to have reproduced with someone that's already from there. Okay. So the UK, Australia, France, Germany, Italy, India, South Africa, Japan, New Zealand. Countries that do not offer birthright citizenship: China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Norway, Switzerland, South Korea. Under the 14th Amendment, the U.S. grants unconditional birthright citizenship born on American soil, including children of undocumented immigrants or foreign nationals. Okay, that's what we got right now. Now, how does this play out in history, because even in the past, there have been events like we've seen where people have been operating. Every government has operated this way. In fact, all of this birthright citizenship conversation made me think about this whole story.
Miles off of the coast of South Florida.
His mother and 11 others drowned in their attempt to come to the U.S. from Cuba. The 5-year-old wound up in the center of a bitter custody battle between his relatives in Miami and his father in Cuba.
And NBC6's Ari Adra is live in the newsroom with a closer look at this whole saga. We remember it well, Ari.
Yeah, we both were there. We both covered it, Jackie. And there have been many tumultuous events in South Florida history, but perhaps none of them sparked as much passion and had as many ripple effects as the saga of the little Cuban boy.
And this was a Democratic administration. So we got the Trump administration, what they've been doing with both of his administrations in 2016 and present. So every branch of government, or at least both political parties, have shown their policy on, I guess, birthright citizenship or immigration to the U.S. in some kind of way.
Boy who sparked an international tug of war.
We are holding the federal government responsible.
Elian Gonzalez was 5 years old. Fishermen found him clinging to an inner tube near Fort Lauderdale. His mother was dead, his father in Cuba. So Elian's Miami relatives took him in.
All of a sudden blew completely out of proportion.
Miami's Cuban community rallied behind Elian's Miami relatives, lobbying for the boy to stay here in the United States. But Elian's dad wanted his son back.
When you bring it up, there are still very strong feelings from all sides of the story.
You know Manny Diaz as the former mayor of Miami, but 25 years ago, he was one of the lawyers representing Elian's Miami family for free. When you think about those days, what do you think of?
Sad. I guess probably my most vivid recollection is having spent 6 months fighting not just the Cuban government, but also our own government.
Diaz says the legal team's goal was to get Elian his day in family court so a judge could decide which situation was best for the child. But that never happened.
Politics took over and really did severe damage to a family.
On April 22, 2000, heavily armed federal agents raided the family's Little Havana home. They took Elian to be reunited with his father in Cuba. The community was outraged. I was reporting from the center of conflict at 27th and Flagler.
This is the last thing I can assure you that the Cuban-American leadership in this community wanted to see. The streets literally burning now. Another tire fire had been set right in the middle of 27th Avenue. Oh, we're getting tear gassed again. Just as you said that, some tear gas was...
We got hit by tear gas 4 times that day. Diaz says the irony is that Elian's dad wanted a visa to stay in the USA until Fidel Castro saw a propaganda opportunity.
Obviously, it put them in a very tough position because once Castro put his arm around him, it's like the Godfather, when he puts his arm around you, it's all over, right? There was never any doubt in my mind that the father really wanted to come here.
According to Diaz, Attorney General Janet Reno had agreed to connect the Cuba and Miami branches of the family and let them decide, without interference, what to do with Elian. But the raid on the house happened the very next day.
They were still a family, and we should have respected always what the family wanted, not what some politician in the United States or not some dictator in Cuba.
The passion on the streets fueled a furious backlash against the Clinton administration.
It was clear to me that the reaction from the community was going to be one of payback on Election Day, and it certainly was.
So you think Elian and the government's role in it cost Al Gore that election?
Absolutely. I mean, look, with 500 vote difference.
Back in Cuba, Elian Gonzalez grew up in the public spotlight and is now part of the Communist Party's upper echelon.
So you see the impact historically that immigration conversations have had around U.S. government and politics and foreign policy. So what did we learn today? I don't know, but I tell you what, it just shows you how complicated that this conversation has always been, and it's never going anywhere. But that's what the comments are for. Use them. Leave it in the comments. This has been another episode of Beyond the Algorithm. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Go get the book. And most importantly, I will see you beyond the algorithm, because that's where life actually happens. Later.